Hello again, Howard Baxton here. In this video, I'd like to talk about some security issues. So let's go ahead and get started and let's talk about this a little bit. I've got a empty pad here, which is this one. It's not totally empty. This one is loaded with the absolute basics, minimum basics for nPose. So it doesn't have anything about the security in it, but it is ready to go. So let's get started here. The plug-in, which we'll use, it'll be introduced a little bit later. It allows us to lock the menu down in several different ways, and also some added features to boot unwanted sitters in several different ways. So we can actually limit menu use, and we can actually limit who gets to sit. Okay, so let's get going here. Let's take a look at step one. Let's see. We're going to start out limiting the menu use, so let's go with that. It says res the build above. It's an empty state, although I covered that a little bit. Edit the build and go to the contents tab, which I have, and I'm done. Now it says in your inventory. Create a new card and name it set seated. Let's see if I've got that. Let's get rid of all of those. We aren't going to need those. We're going to build them again. I do have set seated. It says build that and then edit it and save the contents. Now, from previous bouts around, we know that we have to do something in here so that we can save the contents. And I added my empty row there, so now I can save it, and it's saved, and then I can add it to the contents of the build. So let me make sure I've got it in here. Now then, what this is going to do for us is it is going to not allow anyone to touch this while standing and get a menu. So let me right click and touch. No menu. Right click and touch. No menu. No matter what I do, no menu. Until I have a seat. Then I can get a menu. Okay, what this is going to do for you is it's going to keep all these bystanders from clicking for menu, and you may be sitting there with your honey or whatever, and they're playing games with the menu and changing your poses and just being silly little griefers. So this will eliminate that. They'll have to come and sit with you in order to change the menu. And that may not even be something you want, because, well, it depends on how you build it. But you can, it could create some drama still, where they might have access to some of your poses and what have you. So at any rate, we can take care of that also. There's some other options you can use for this set card, such as if you as the owner want to be able to touch that and get a menu while you're standing, you can add owner or seated. Okay, so the owner can touch it, from the menu or from standing and get a menu, but everyone else must be seated. And you can even restrict the seated a little bit further if you want to. So the owner still touches and gets a menu even standing. And seated since this is an and here, nPose evaluates the and statement before the or statement. So it will evaluate seated and group. Okay, so anyone seated has to be in the associated group with the build in order to get a menu. The owner can get the menu seated or standing, but anyone else has to be seated and they must be in the group that's associated with the build. Okay, so you can use that as an option too. But in all reality, the number of groups in SL is just too low as it is. And so if we were to create a group just for our furniture, it could eat up a group and maybe someone doesn't have it. So we can do some other things, like create a UDP list of users. And if you're in the list of users and you're seated, you can get a menu. Okay? So how do we create a list? Well, we've got this plugin right down here that will actually create a list from a note card, as long as it's named access lower a access control list. Okay, so let's just go ahead and create this access control list. It says in your inventory, create a card and name it access control list. So let's copy that name, and in here let's create a new note card and we'll name it access control list. If nPose is going to be nice to me, I must have done something wrong, because I did that. Oh, is it time to reload? Boy, this is just terrible. There we go. Now we finally got it. Okay. So now we got the access control list. That's here. Now it says edit the card and create a list of UUIDs of avatars you're wanting to have access to the menu. So I've got a demo. I've got my UUID and nPose tester number 1. So let's go ahead and copy this. Control C, Control V. Now they're in the card. Let me go ahead and save and close, because I know that's the intended. Yeah, save and close and add it to the build. Okay, that part is in there. Now the next thing we need to do is get our access control list plugin in there. So we can take this and drag it out here. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Nah, I'm not. I've already got it right here. I've already copied it to inventory and put it in the place where I want it, so it's there. As a matter of fact, it's there. So I don't need to add to them. We already have one. As you can tell, this is not my first time through this note card, this instruction card. I've been at it a while. I've had to find some bugs, get rid of some bugs to get this list to work. One of them was there was a bug in the core. So lists have never worked since 4.00 was released. And as of today, lists are going to work, as long as you use this new core. And yeah, just so you know, I've been working on, in the back room, a way to get the UUIDs of everyone who has touched that nPose sign, to get a copy of the complete list of nPose, wherever that's at. Here it is, nPose v4.01 boxed. Everyone who's touched the sign to get that, I can get the UUID of the people who touched, and send out some updates. So everyone will get an updated core soon, so that they can use lists as well. All my weeping and crying and descent into what I had to go through on this, now know that we'll have some updates coming out soon, and I can update nPose for you. Anyway, now that we have this in here, and that's all you had to do is add it, and everything's good to go. Okay, enough of my babbling here. Let's get down to it and finish up these cards. I think we have 3 or 4 to do, so let's go ahead and deal with this and get her over with. The first thing we need to do is set up the default values for UDP's macros and options. These settings are in the .init card, so we need to edit the build and edit the .init, add the following lines to the init. So let's copy those, and when we're done, we're going to save and close the init. So let's just paste them in there and save it and close it. Actually, what we've got is we've got some options. We've got a booter option, and we're going to set that value to 0. And we've got a permit option, and we're going to default that value to ACL. We've got some UDP pools, which we're going to use to do the toggling with. So we've got one for booting and one for toggle owner. Okay, so it's either ACL or owner, whatever, we're going to call it that. And we've got some macros, which are actually, one's a boot state, which is off, and the other one's a perm state, which is going to default to ACL. So when permits ACL, we want perm to be ACL. When toggle booting is a 0, we want boot state to be 0. These macros we'll use in a menu prompt, so that we can display the status of each one of these 2 things in a menu prompt, so it's easy to see, and you know what state you're in before you toggle. Okay, all that said, let's get out of that one. That one's done. Now we need to set up the boot on off toggle card. So in step 3, it says in your inventory, actually, let's delete those. In your inventory, create a card and name it set locks boot on off. So let's copy that name, create a new card, and paste that name in there, and then we want to edit it and add the following lines. So there's 5 lines we need to put in there to make this toggle work. We'll open that card and just paste them in. We'll save and close, and add that card to the build. Next, we need to set up the owner/ACL toggle button card. So in your inventory, create a new card and name it set locks owner/ACL. So let's create the new card, paste the name in there, and we need to add the following lines. So there's 5 of those. Let's grab them all. They're all finely spaced for you, and stick them in there. Save and close that one, and add it to the card. Next, we need to set the button perms on this sub-menu so we don't have to use button perms on everything in that sub-menu. We just make it so that only the owner can get in there, and if pardon me, only the owner can see this button locks. So the owner is the only one that can get into the submenu. If you can't see the submenu button, you can't get into it. So that's how that works. So let's create a new note card, paste that name in there, and we've got one line we need to copy into that thing, which is a menu prompt line, which is going to display the boot state, current boot state, and the current permissions. Okay, so that's how that's all going to look, and we'll see that in just a moment. We're almost done. And save and close that, and add it into the card, into the build, sorry. And that should do it. Now everything should work as stated. Let's give it a try. So let me see what's going on here. I'm the owner, and I changed the perms to owner, so I should be able to get a menu. I can get a menu. I've got the default card and utilities, and there's my locks, and I can see locks because I'm the owner. So click that, and we get inside, and we see 2 buttons. These are our toggle buttons. We also see our current state for each one of those toggle buttons. So the boot state is off, and if I click the boot state to on, that toggle button, the boot state goes to on, and the toggle button comes back. Permissions are ACL, and I've got this toggle which will toggle between owner and ACL. So since it's ACL, it should go to owner. And we click that button, and yes, it does. Okay, let's put this back to ACL real quick. And I think I deleted my access control list. There's another copy of it, so I can go ahead and put that in there. And I deleted my plug-in as well, so I need that in there. There we go. Now let me go into the locks again and see if this thing still works. And I've got my on-off. Oh, that's strange. Oh, I have owner ACL in there twice. Delete. What did I do? Got locks. There should be 3 buttons in there. I'm guessing I had 2 things selected when I grabbed that and pulled it in. So I got 2 things instead of 1. So if I go up 1 and back in, I should only see 2 buttons, the on-off and the owner ACL. And they should still work. On, off, owner, ACL. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn the boot on real quick. Oh, I know why. I didn't get my ACL control list in there. So here we go. Put the ACL control list in there. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, I've got Howard's UUID, and I've got nPose Tester's UUID in there. I'm going to block nPose tester's UEID from being read. So that guy's blocked. Now then, we have this boot state on. Let me go out of that and back in and make sure that didn't change. I didn't mess that up. Yeah, we're still good. So let's see, since I'm not in the ACL list here as input tester, and we're in ACL list, all these restrictions are going to work on the ACL. So I should not be able to sit, is basically the way I'm trying to get to you. So if I sit here, boom, I'm kicked right off. It doesn't let me. Okay, now Howard is in the ACL list. So let me go over to Howard is right here and try and sit. Okay, I can't get the menu because I'm not the owner and I have to be sitting, so I can click all I want and I never get there. So let's see what happens if I try and sit. Yes, since I'm in the ACL list, I can sit. Okay, so let me go back to nPose tester. Let's do something. Let's just change this to owner. Now then, since we're setting on owner, we're no longer using the ACL list to determine who gets booted. Only the owner. Okay, this is actually owner only setup, so nPose tester should be able to sit now. So if we do that and sit, yes, nPose tester can sit, but since I'm not owner only, I'm going to get booted. So each time someone changes seats or whatever triggers this thing, which is someone changing seats, I'm getting booted. Okay, so let's change this back to ACL. Now we're using the ACL list, and nPose tester is still sitting, but he wouldn't be able to sit if he wasn't. So when Howard sits, and nPose tester gets booted. Okay, so that's basically how that's working. And he can't sit back down. It won't let him because he's not in the ACL list. So that basically takes care of it. There was something I saw earlier. I want to see if that still exists because I've made some changes. So if I take the access control list and reset it, this basically is inaccurate. So let me go up a menu and back in, and we see the ACL is, or the boot state is off. So if we toggle boot state, it should come back on. Yes, that fixed it. Whatever I did fixed that issue. I was thinking I was going to have to go into the menu and find out why that wasn't changing, but got her taken care of for you. All right, that should end this little tutorial. So I guess we'll talk to you next time.